Welcome to ciplantgo, a podcast aimed at introducing people living a plant-based lifestyle in Japan. For this episode, I chatted with Nadia McKechnie for the second time on the show. Nadia is a professional educational writer and voice actor, and organizer of the Tokyo Vegan Meetup. 2019 was a great year for Tokyo Vegan Meetup, so I thought it would be interesting to talk with Nadia about what happened and what is coming in 2020. This time, after a brief presentation of Nadia and Tokyo Vegan Meetup, we chatted about her experience taking part in the Vegigiren, a government initiative aiming at making Japan more vegan-friendly before the Olympics. What are the foreseeable challenges for all the plant-based people who will be visiting this summer? How to raise awareness among non-vegans? Which of the three pillars of veganism to focus on in Japan? And finally, what is in store for Tokyo Vegan Meetup this year? It was a real pleasure sitting down with Nadia for the second time and exchanging points of view regarding all things vegan in Japan. I hope you will find the conversation as interesting as I did. Without further ado, here is Nadia McKechnie. Thank you, Nadia, for being on the podcast for the second time.
Well, thank you for inviting me back.
Sure. So for listeners who haven't listened to, I believe, is the fourth podcast I recorded at the time, not with Ideal Audio at the time, but this time hopefully it's better. For listeners who haven't listened to that podcast a year ago, can you briefly introduce yourself and Tokyo Vegan Meetup at the same time?
Okay, my name's Nadia McKechnie. I've been in Japan about 30 years. I work as a narrator and I write books about how to speak English. And I'm organizer of Tokyo Vegan Meetup and Vegan Tokyo project. Tokyo Vegan Meetup is a big group of about 8,000 members now. And we have events nearly every week. Talk events, outreach booths, lunches, dinners, social events. We had I think 64 events last year, attended by about 3,000 people. So it's a very big and very busy meetup group, really fun. About maybe 60-70% Japanese and 30% foreigners. Not every single person there is vegan. Actually, most people are not vegan, I would say, but a lot of people are interested in veganism. So for me, it's vegan activism, being organizer of the group.
Sure, that's awesome. As I said already the last time on the podcast, and as I like to explain it to people who don't know Tokyo Vegan Meetup or haven't been to a meetup yet, it's an awesome form of activism, I think, that brings people together about good food and that connects vegan and non-vegans and all in. I've never heard anyone criticize anyone about their position. And that's very welcoming, I think. And that's all volunteer work, right?
It's 100% volunteer, yeah. It's organized by volunteers for the vegan community and to try to spread veganism. That's basically it, yeah.
So that's about 1+ event per week over the last year, which sounds like a lot.
Last year was crazy.
Yes. Is there something you want to share with us about that last year with Tokyo Vegan Meetup?
It was a bit too crazy. No, it was great. It was wonderful to see the group growing so much. And yeah, that's all really. Nothing. Just come. If anybody's in Tokyo, please come and check it out.
Can you just give us, if you remember, the number before that year? So if you say it's been growing, have you kept track of the numbers there?
Well, I've been organizer about 4 or 5 years now, along with Saori-san. And I can't remember. I think it was about 2,000 or 3,000 members about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think about a year ago it was maybe almost 6,000 members, and now more than 8,000.
That's awesome.
So it's growing pretty fast.
Yeah, it's very fast. I mean, obviously there's a lot of rotation as well, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, of course. It's not the same people that come every single event.
Yeah. A regular event would have how many people usually?
Well, we had an event the other day. It was a talk event. We had about, I think it was 54 people.
But that's a lot actually for such
we have
event,
those kind of big events about once a month.
Okay.
And then we also have a smaller, regular meetup that you host, don't you? At the Pink Cow.
Yeah.
And that only fits about 40 people, I think.
The current venue, yeah. And so usually it's between 25 and 40 maximum. All right.
And we had several hundred people come to our Christmas marché, our first ever Christmas marché event.
Yes, I missed it,
And we have little events too. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think if people don't like the big events, we also have little events like lunch events and stuff like that too. So
that's great.
Yeah, of course.
And so you said, half joking, that it was maybe a bit too much. Like, obviously, you're in charge of organizing all those events. And I mean, people like me gladly help for hosting, but still all the organization, getting in touch with the restaurants and everything, I think it's work you do on your side. So 64 events, that sounds like a lot to me. Are you looking at, is that a pace that you think is something you trying to replicate this year, or maybe tune down a bit, or looking for obviously more help all the time? But
well, we do have like a really nice team of volunteers right now, actually, that's really helping. But I think, of course, I'd like to, increase the team, and we are getting people in to sort of do more stuff. But I think the trouble last year was that we just there were so many opportunities we didn't want to miss.
Okay.
So, for example, we organized meetup booths at Earth Day Tokyo. That was 3 or 4 days, and also Green Festival Tokyo.
Yes.
And we had to, of course, make leaflets and panels, and also I think they're just because there's been a big interest in veganism in general, there have been so many opportunities
to do
we're just trying to grab them while the timing was right. But this year, what I'm trying to do is start a bit slower and try to plan things a bit better and delegate stuff to other people more.
Yeah.
Last year was just a sort of big push, but this year a little bit more strategic, I think.
Okay, sounds good to me. I mean, I understand the feeling of wanting to make the most of events that happen, actually, whether you take part in them or not, like Green Day, etc. But the core of Tokyo Vegan Meetup is definitely the meetups around food and talk events, etc. And
I mean, to be honest, the events is not really a big problem. We have the template down.
Yeah.
We have lots of friends in restaurants and cafes. So making the events is not a big issue. The things which was hard last year is things like social media.
Yeah.
Because we started off with just a meetup group. But of course, then Zari and I, about a year ago, we were thinking we should advertise in other ways. We can't just advertise on Meetup.
Yeah.
So we made a Facebook, and then we made Instagram, and then we had outreach at Paul McCartney's concerts last year, the year before last, I think.
The year before last year. That's
and and then we thought, well, if we're doing vegan outreach, we have to have somewhere to send people. So we made leaflets, we made a homepage, and it was that stuff that basically, and then of course the design involved. We have to find someone to do designing leaflets and updating and whatnot. So it's more that stuff which is really time consuming, and we really need help with that. I mean, I really need help. So if anybody is interested in helping us, just please get in touch. We've got a team starting to work on those things, but I think those things will let us reach more people with the events. Yeah,
so the message is out. I think last time we also finished on saying that you were looking for some help. Hopefully this time you will get some reaction there from a listener. That would be great.
But also, if anybody wants to help actually organizing the help, does that make sense?
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
Delegating can really be time consuming.
Of
So
course.
if anybody wants to take on one, we actually have somebody who's now, Ruja, she's going to be our new admin person. She's going to organize spreadsheets and strategy and stuff. And we have lovely Mari and Kano, of course, doing translation.
Great.
And Koko-san as well, and various other people. Sorry if I haven't named you yet. But we have June, my friend June's doing Instagram now. So we're starting to get people involved, and it's fun,
That's great. Awesome. And so...
Oh, sorry. And Shoki-san, we're organizing our new website.
All right, cool.
And Yukari-san organized the last leaflets. Sorry.
All right. So, I mean, it's understandable if you... I think it is understandable if you ever, kind of forgot to name one name. I'm sure
it's like the
okay.
Academy Awards.
So, there were all those big opportunities in 2019, and... would that be related also to the current trend of more awareness with sustainability environmental issues, and also maybe the Olympics happening here in Tokyo?
The Olympics is huge, actually. I mean, as we talked about just before this podcast meeting, the Vegigiren, there's a now, I'm not sure if people know about it. There's a veggie council, which was created in about October last year. And the purpose of that is to try to increase vegan options ahead of the Olympics. I mean, a bunch of lawmakers realized that there just literally aren't enough vegan options for the people, the tourists or the athletes coming at the Olympics. So I've been involved in that.
I see. So when we're talking about vegan options in Tokyo, especially in Tokyo, people who are not living here, who don't have much knowledge about Japan in general, they might think, hearing this, that there's very few places to eat vegan in Tokyo, but that's not really the case. It's more like there are specialized places. There's a lot of them in Seoul. And so if you know where to go, it's not that hard to find, depending on where you are in the city, but mostly it's well distributed overall. It's more about when you go to a random place, or when you go to a more traditional Japanese place, or even like the cafe we're in now, they don't have any plant-based milk for their coffee.
And nothing to eat.
And this is
a
very famous French franchise cafe thing.
Right.
And they don't have any plant-based milk, right?
No, they have like, herbal tea or something, but no plant-based milk, and almost no like dedicated vegan bread or anything. There might be a couple of like baguettes that don't have
plus their
by
indication,
chance.
Indication for all the breads they have, they write down stuff for allergies, right? That's the point, right? But it's all in Japanese, so we're lucky we can read it.
Right, exactly.
But tourists will come, and even athletes will come. They enter here. They are vegan. What do? Well, if the staff doesn't speak English,
it's just very stressful and time-consuming, basically. Like I went back to London a few weeks ago, and London, basically, in every coffee shop chain, at least, every restaurant, there's vegan options. They have food options and plant-based milks, and everything is labelled really clearly. It's really, really easy. But in Tokyo, the chains like Starbucks, or our local chains like Dotur or Tully's, even these chains, they might have soy milk. But they don't have any like food at all. Maybe a banana. I think we have a banana in Starbucks.
Okay.
And in like UK, we have like a wrap, a sandwich, cake, oatmeal. Maybe oat milk. I'm not sure, but it's just really, really different. And also, the other interesting thing I noticed in London, there are quite a few Japanese chains, like Itsu and Wasabi and Your Sushi Wagamama, and they all have about a third of their items are vegan, and they're all labelled. Like I think it was Your Sushi, like this sushi place at Heathrow Airport. They had a big sign up saying a third of our items are vegan.
Okay.
And Wasabi had a big sign in the window saying, try our Veganuary plant-based options. So people who are not familiar with the vegan scene in Japan come to Japan expecting a kind of vegan paradise. And what they find is like, you can find something to eat maybe if you have the right apps and Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Right. Without the
different.
internet, it's almost impossible to find your vegan food here.
Yeah, and you can't just go out for a beer with your friends in some bar and expect to find something to eat without a lot of stress.
Okay, so going back to the Vegigiren, the lawmakers, etc. So what was the process there? How did they get in touch with you, and what was your role there too?
Well, it's a bipartisan committee, and Meat Free Monday All Japan's Kojo-san is kind of behind it. And basically, it's like, I think it's me, Greenpeace. I came as Tokyo Vegan Meetup representative, and I also came along, first of all, as representative of the Japan Vegan Labelling and Options Project. And I handed in a petition we'd made about we want more vegan options. So I came as Tokyo Vegan Meetup representative, and we had the Ethical Vegan Society, Veggie Projects, a few other different, Japan Vegetarian Society. And then we had like a bunch of lawmakers came who were interested in finding out how to increase the vegan options ahead of the Olympics. That was how it first was set up. The first meeting in October was a big press conference at the Japanese government with lots of, news, media and so on, and just basically it was just like a sort of kick-off, where people were talking about the problem and what we should do about it.
Okay, and how did that go overall? Like during the actual meetings and then towards the end, etc. What was your feeling? Because it's definitely something big, right? Like if, for example, 2-3 years ago, you would have been told that would happen, you would have been like, really? Are you sure?
I was actually kind of like gobsmacked is the word we use in Britain. That
I was very surprised as well.
Yeah, or not just the government, it's like bipartisan committee that lawmakers will try to do something about the lack of vegan options. But it really is a thing in Japan, we can't talk about barrier-free and unity and diversity and just cut out the vegans, can you? I mean, you have to... Yeah, I mean, there's more catering for halal and religious needs than there are just for the, vegan needs. But yeah, I mean, the first meeting was quite positive. I felt quite, everyone just basically gave in various, like I gave in, what we did at Vegan Tokyo Vegan Meetup was I gave in the petition, of course. And we also translated the Vegan Society, UK Vegan Society Advice for Caterers pamphlet. Because I was thinking that one thing the government could do is they could just tell business in Japan what vegans eat and what kind of things they need. And so I just kind of translated that, or got our team to translate it and handed it in. So that was great. The second meeting, various people from local areas came, like, local ministers and stuff, or people like from various wards in Tokyo came, and they talked a little bit about what they were planning to do to try to increase the vegan options. Mostly it was about educational seminars for local business and stuff like that, but it got a little bit bogged down, in my opinion, on people talking about making rules and guidelines about what vegan is and what can be labelled as vegan. In other countries we don't even have that. We haven't evolved to the point where we have government guidelines on what vegan is.
Yeah, I understand. So
it seemed a bit getting off topic to me. Yes. I don't think we actually need that right now. We just need people to we know what vegan is. I mean, vegan is products without animal ingredients in. When it comes to food, it's quite simple.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like no-brainer. All over the world, businesses are able to make vegan products. So I don't see why businesses in Japan can't make vegan products too,
Yeah, understood. So yeah, I remember you reaching out about this kind of direction of the discussions where they were trying to put their finger on a definition and say what is vegan and what is not. And definitely that will happen sometime in the future. I'm sure it will happen. Whether it's first in Japan or not, that I don't know. But at some point it will happen. I'm sure of it. But they're kind of going too fast and forgetting steps.
Missing the basic steps.
And the basic steps would be, for example, like the petition you talked about is a labeling and vegan options petition, right? But adding vegan options, I feel, to me, and I don't know much about the details, but it seems to me that adding vegan options to places like where we are now, or like your regular izakaya kind of bar restaurant place, is more work than just having English labels.
I mean, you could there's probably a couple of breads here that would be vegan, and I'm sure they could manage to bring in a soy milk or something, or oat milk. It wouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah, for coffee shops, having like mandatorily like having one plant-based milk option seems pretty straightforward.
I'm sure they could manage to make like a sandwich as well, or something with vegan bread. I don't really know. I mean, I think at the last meeting we had, which was Christmas Day, that was meant to be a bit more of a casual meeting. We can just like really give our opinions. And again, then too, I felt the meeting was getting bogged down on issues like cross-contamination. But, cross-contamination in other countries is not a vegan issue. Like I went back to London, every single cafe has a big cross-contamination warning on the counter. It just says basically, if you're allergic to anything, please just ask staff for details about what's in individual projects. And, a vegan label just means that, of course, there might be mistakes sometimes, but if people are allergic, even if there is a vegan label, they will check. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, because they're going to be worried. Of course, cross-contamination is always going to be an issue whatever coffee shop you're in. Of course, for products, you have to be much more strict, but that's a completely different issue than making options in cafes. So, I felt like what we should be doing with the government committee, I felt like a lot of it was about people trying to provide more information for the foreigners coming to Japan about the existing vegan options. But to be honest, we already have information. We have Happy Cow, we have Vegiwell, we have Hachidori, we have the internet. I think the foreigners that come here can find the vegan options online. What we need in Japan is we need companies to label things that are already vegan by chance.
Yes.
And we also need them to start creating more vegan options.
Of course.
So we don't need them just to tell the people how to find the stuff that they can find already. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I mean, I suppose that if you have more and more labeling for every kind of item and like everything that is accidentally vegan, if you label it vegan, it will help foreigners, but it will also raise awareness overall, because people like Japanese people will be, oh, what is this? And like, since it's starting to make more and more the news, etc., people will know more, and that will naturally, even by a small margin, at least by a small margin, increase demand. And if you increase demand, it's logic to think that there will be more products being developed and like put on the market by companies, right? So it's going to be kind of snowball.
Of course, like other countries, exactly the same.
But if people don't know what it is, there's no reason for companies to sell it.
Exactly. So my feeling was, rather than worrying about cross-contamination, we should be telling, spreading the information, making some kind of leaflet or something, advice leaflet for caterers about what vegan is.
At least like what
or why
vegan
people
isn't.
are vegan, what it isn't, or it's not a religion, it's
like
not an allergy. It's not the same as gluten-free. Gluten-free is an allergy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Vegan is not an allergy. It's a choice in most cases. So the other thing I think that came up in the meeting that I was a bit worried about was that a lot of people seem to be worried that if we ask businesses to make vegan options, they're going to get it wrong. And then people are going to have cross-contamination issues, or they're going to die or something. But I think that sort of, in other countries, businesses manage to make vegan options without killing everybody. So I don't see why in Japan the businesses are not that useless. Surely they can manage it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind when hearing this is that Japan is oftentimes, more than other countries, very, very much focused on customer service and being careful about, like, they're very risk averse.
That's very risk averse.
Very risk averse, which is, to their credit, one of the reasons why they're so good at taking to tackle big projects like the Olympics, like the World Cup, like the World Soccer Cup, like back in 2002, I think it was, with
it was
Korea.
2002.
And I remember hearing it was like flawlessly organized for the Japanese part, at least. I don't remember the overall thing. I'm not a soccer person, but they're definitely very good at organizing things because they're risk averse and because they're just the decision making in Japan, the way it's being done is very frustrating when you're in the process, involved in the process, and you want to get a point across. But I think it's also the reason why it's working so well overall.
Yeah.
And so that will definitely hinder something like labeling of vegan products, because they're going to like want to dissect everything and look at all the potential problems that might arise, like cross-combination.
That's kind of that's what I felt so
this
far.
And that. Oh,
yeah.
and what if this happens? And so, okay, no, this is too risky. Let's not touch the status quo, please, kind of thing.
But for me, that's not a reason to not tell people what vegan is.
Of course.
We can still tell people what it is. I mean, hopefully they won't get it wrong. But that shouldn't stop us from telling people. The worry about that shouldn't stop us from spreading information that vegans exist and they want products.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So that's kind of like a little bit a little bit worried. I mean, of course, I think it's wonderful. I think things have shifted a lot, and I'm still part of the committee. I'm not criticizing anyone in particular, but as you said, I think it's like in Japan, people are very risk averse, and that is something that's getting in the way of increasing the options faster.
Yeah, obviously. And so you say you're still part of the process there. Do you know of like, because the Olympics are like 165 days away.
Right.
Yeah, I just saw like the countdown here in the neighborhood in some building, and that's a very short time for anything on the side of the law to happen, or anything like, I can't imagine so much change in such a short time compared to what I know of Tokyo's vegan friendliness. And what I 2 years ago I would have maybe thought like, oh, if this happens, maybe it will have changed that much, right? Where do you see this lawmaking process, etc., going within this time frame, and where do you see the vegan friendliness of Tokyo be just at the time of the Olympics?
Well, I think it really depends on whether like business starts realizing there are opportunities available for vegan businesses, you know, for like vegan products. I don't think it will be anything like London or New York, or I don't know what Paris is like, or I don't know, but London or New York or Thailand apparently is very vegan friendly. I don't know. I'll be happy if we manage to get like even a few more vegan options in mainstream places. That would be a huge success to me, but I can't see that happening right now. I haven't heard anything. I do keep my ear to the vegan grapevine, but right now I haven't heard anything about any chains like Starbucks or anything like that making vegan products.
And there's that, and there's also...
It might happen soon, you don't know?
Because one of the main thing I'm thinking about right now is one common... very common ingredient of Japanese food, because come on, like foreigners are going to come here, even if they're vegan, they want to eat Japanese food, right? And there's a few options for vegans, and I'm sure some foreigners will go towards those. But if you're kind of flexitarian, you say, and you prefer to have plant-based food, and you just don't look up Happy Cow or whatever, and you go to some place and you're looking at the menu and there's no clear labeling or whatever, and you're avoiding the fish, the meat, but you're still getting dashi, soup stock made out of fish, but you don't know that. Or maybe you know it, but it's like there's no clear option. And so you can't get algae-based dashi, the kombu dashi, right? Something like what this government-based initiative there could do is to, one, inform businesses that this is a problem, and two, that the solution would be to have the option to choose kombu dashi in every place that has dashi, which basically means every place.
Well, basically, all they really need, like a soba restaurant or something, is just like put a bottle of kombu dashi in there. But I think there's like lots of like information I'd like to get out there. Like, for example, lots of like soba restaurants, they really take pride in their soba sauce, their
for the
soup.
listeners, soba is like a buckwheat noodle,
buckwheat noodle, and so, but they really take pride in the flavoring of their soup, and so they don't just want to put like a bottle of kombu dashi in there and make it available for foreigners. But what I'd like them to know is that the vegans would love that, because it means they can go there with the group.
Of course,
Otherwise, they have nothing to eat.
If I go to a soba place now, my personal choice is, and I haven't been actually since being vegan, not that I used to go often before that, but I would go and I would have the soba without the soup, because I wouldn't even try, and I'm not that fan of soba enough that to bring my own kombu dashi bowl, right? But I totally understand, because they have such a love of their own craft, and that's a wonderful part of Japanese culture.
That's a wonderful thing as well.
And like their culinary culture and everything, their craft is so exquisitely sophisticated, but also simple, the kind of wabi-sabi kind of thing. Right? And making this compatible with a growing vegan demand. And it's not like Japan used to use katsuo-based fish-based dashi forever, right? Like kombu was probably the main, if not the only, kind of main ingredient for dashi throughout the centuries, and then came...
And also vegetables as well, because not everybody lived by the sea, did they?
Exactly,
a lot of people lived inland and didn't have a chance to go to the sea.
They could get either totally ditch the fish-based dashi, which I don't think is going to happen, or have two of those. And it's more work, and it's probably a little like investment up front, but hopefully with a growing demand, which is what the Olympic will definitely show. I mean, it's going to be temporary with the Olympics, but it's such a good opportunity. And for most vegans who are like caring about that, seeing it kind of being half wasted might be
it's
pretty
very
frustrating.
Like basically, if we just like popped like a bottle of kombudashi, like even like a ready-made bottle in every single soba restaurant in Japan, that would make a vegan option. It's
Of
so
course.
simple. It's
Yeah,
a
it's so
no-brainer.
simple, yeah.
And we would like that. We don't care about the flavor. We just want like some vegan noodles. But I think it's just like that information is not getting out. But I think the main problem is like another big problem too is that people don't know what vegan is. I mean, when we hear talk about vegan on the telly or the TV or something, it's sort of some kind of beauty diet or something. I mean, vegan's an ethical lifestyle with animals at the center of the message, and then the planet, of course, and then of course you have health. But people don't understand that, you know, that there are vegans and that why they're vegan. So we're not really getting the message out, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
And unless we do that, we're not going to increase the number of vegans in Japan. And also, we're not going to let the people who are vegan already out of the closet. Because I think we talked about it in our last
Probably,
talk,
to
maybe,
some
but
extent,
you know, like the majority of the vegan people I meet at Tokyo Vegan Meetup are kind of like secret vegans.
Yeah, they were for a long time.
Or they
that's
don't
for
really
sure.
say anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
even now they don't really want to say anything to their co-workers.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, it's not understood, and it's best case
people
scenario.
don't know why. I think
yeah.
they're just selfish or just weird or something.
Yeah. You don't want to like accommodate everyone's
No, weird like
culture
dietary
or
thingy, But the thing is, I think if people realize more that people actually do have a reason for being vegan, if there was more understanding that people are not just sort of doing it to be annoying or different, but they have a reason for it. Like, you know, like now in the UK, I went back to the UK the other week and we had like television commercials that were mentioning, I think it was corn or something.
Okay.
Corn, you know, that product. They were talking about the environment in the TV commercials, saying, you know, if you want to have a bit more friendly environmental product, eat corn, you know. And then we had like, is it Ingrid Newkirk from Peter? Okay. She was being interviewed on breakfast television about her new book, you know. And so...
And I'm thinking of the ads on the buses too, the Imperial buses.
But
you don't see that anywhere else. Probably most parts of the world, I don't think you see public buses having vegan messages.
But I think it wasn't just vegan messages. It was the fact that vegan products are selling their products on the environmental issue.
Yeah.
Because people know about it and they do care about it. So that kind of legitimizes vegan. It's not just like an organization like Greenpeace doing it. It's actually, or I don't know, the Greenpeace are vegan, but anyway. But it's not an organization, animal rights organization doing it or an environmental organization doing it. It's like a product selling their product, saying, hi, you can be more vegan friendly.
It's a social
it's just like a social thing.
cause,
And
that
so
makes me
meat
think
reduction and doing your best.
And I just watched on the train coming here, I don't know if you've watched it yet because it just got released, but Joaqin Phoenix speech at the awards.
I just saw it on the way here online.
Oh yeah, you too? Yeah, so that was very inclusive, as like putting veganism and animal
Social
rights
justice
within the fight for justice, like for all living beings, basically all sentient beings, and for the earth and for the environment. So it was kind of putting everything together, because obviously being on such a stage, if he was just advocating for one thing, it's a hard message to get across. But there, I mean, who's gonna go against what he said? Like, no one can really say anything against that, right?
I mean who doesn't want like a nicer, kinder world?
Exactly.
I mean, unless you're a psycho. I mean, of course, it's difficult and to people to change their habits. I'm not saying that everybody listening to this who's not vegan right now should suddenly, you know, go vegan overnight. It takes you a little while to figure it out, but it's a nice directions to go into, isn't it?
Yeah, like one thing at a time. Just and for that we need, for people who live in Japan and are not for some reason driven or in a possibility of really making a huge change like some of us did, it's just, oh, you go to a cafe with friends, they have that plant-based milk option, and here they don't. And so what do? Well, you want your latte, you take your latte, right? Because if not, it starts to kind of snowball thing where you each time feel like you're kind of sacrificing something. And having a market where offerings for vegan are there, for that, raising awareness about the why is important, and also on the other hand, I don't think that Japan is such a good place for pushing the ethical message strongly at first.
Well, I think basically, but I think you have to push the ethical message, because if people don't know why you're doing it, nothing's going to change. I'm not saying you have to like put really scary images on TV, but the fact is, like, the seas are dying around Japan. You know what I mean? I mean, if you don't care about the animals, I mean, care about the environment.
Well, the environment is one thing, but I was kind of putting the ethical part apart from the environmental part.
Oh yeah, but I think people just don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of, I always hear this a lot, and I just think it's weird, because I find that in general people I know in Japan are very kind, and they care about, dogs and cats and pets and stuff like that. And if they knew about what the animals went through, if they knew that, for example, England, UK is pretty bad when it comes to animal welfare, like every other country in the world, but the UK is rank A.
Yeah.
Japan is rank D.
Yes.
And there are basically no laws protecting animals in Japan. So I think if people actually knew how the animals suffer, a lot of people I know would be shocked, and they wouldn't want to support that. If there's an alternative, they would be happy to buy eat the kombu dashi. Or I don't see why Japanese people are different to anybody else in the world. I don't buy that.
Yeah, I'd very much like to think that as well. Although I have a very high opinion about Japanese people overall.
We've got lots of vegan friends, Japanese friends.
Of course.
So why are they different than anybody else?
Well, because they're different.
No, but they're Japanese people. They were raised in normal Japanese ordinary culture.
But
they didn't go to national school.
But they all show traits that I think don't go so well with the status quo of Japanese society.
I don't really agree with that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
you know them better than I do.
I think they're doing that because they've come out as, maybe they're brave because they're coming out as vegan, but maybe I'm talking about the closet vegans that I know.
Okay.
Because I do know a lot of them.
All right.
I just wish that they were able to be more open. The society would allow them. But I think if there was more message about the animals, I think basically it's just weird that in 2020 the animals are completely missing from the media content.
That's true.
That is what is weird to me. We have YouTube, we have people can get information on YouTube, but on TV in Britain, not everybody's vegan, of course, or the States or any other country, but people are always talking about animals and veganism and kind people and bleeding hearts, even if they're complaining about vegans.
Yeah, exactly.
They're mentioning it somehow.
It's part of the discussion.
It's just sort of like the fact that even with lots of kind of veggie groups in Japan, I feel it's kind of a taboo.
Yeah.
I feel that is what is holding up
veganism
spreading in Japan.
Because abroad, if abroad in countries like France, the UK, the States, etc., where veganism is on the rise and the vegan message is as a whole, like the ethical, the environmental, everything, the whole package is also, the awareness is raising. People who are not vegan, if you ask them about the topic overall, they will most probably feel the need to justify why they're not caring for the animals to the extent of changing their diet habits, right? So they feel the need to address for their own selves, to justify their own habits. And I'm not criticizing them. I mean, it's very complicated. But here in Japan, that's totally absent of the discourse. So people, even if they even know what veganism is, they most probably will talk about health first, right? I like plant foods because it's good for health, or maybe the environment if they know a bit about it. But animal rights, and even not going as far as rights, but just animal cruelty, being aware
animal
of
welfare even.
Like being aware of how horrible the life of a factory farm animal is. It's totally absent of the discussion here, and so raising awareness there is important. I'm still unsure about, because there's this part of Japanese culture that makes it so comfortable to be in, as especially a foreigner, because you can have very different values, ideas, lifestyle here as a foreigner. I don't think you'll ever be openly criticized or put, let's say, like question in a way that feels like you're being a bit judged, right? It's always going to be like, oh, you're foreigner anyways, so you're different. That's going to be in the background of the mind of people talking to you, so they're going to be very accepting of you. But I don't think that is also, it's only applicable to foreigners. I think in Japan, because of how people value harmony, not making any waves, over expressing their own core values and trying to make changes when they see something that doesn't fit with their values, most of them never learn to be affirmative about what they feel is right, and they just go with the flow of the mainstream, of conformity, and that's not something that's neutral, because it kind of, I think it really makes you, what's the word I'm looking for? If you don't train that muscle of being affirmative in hopefully a positive way, in a way that makes it's inclusive, it makes the people in front of you feel like, oh, he has a point, oh, I want to learn more, oh, that's a nice person, not in an aggressive way. If you don't train that muscle, and if you don't just exercise your thoughts, because what I'm doing right now is the same. I had those thoughts in my head, but now I'm trying to make them make sense talking. If you don't talk, you can't talk, and you can't think, and you think while you talk. And so Japanese people, they don't speak up. Most of them don't speak up, and that has a lot of advantages from a society point of view, and harmony and everything. It's a very peaceful society, but what you don't see is what is frightening to me.
So maybe they do speak up, but in like a different way. They use different ways of communicating their ideas. So, but I think there's definitely something in, we have to change the value somehow to make it like animals included in the conversation, to include animals. I mean, basically, as you said before, eating lots of animals wasn't always the big thing in Japan, was it? It's like a new culture. So we can change it. This is not traditional Japanese culture, like, having fast food outlets on every corner. So we have to find a way of sharing the message that makes it feel inclusive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Don't you think that, for example, so the few outreach events, like, for example, what was the name of that event again, where you had a booth, the one in Ueno Park? Well, one of the two you had.
Green Festival?
Yeah, the Green Festival or something like that. So I was there. I was like representing Tokyo Vegan Meetup, and I talked to a few people passing through, and I found that the health argument, the health point of view was the strongest one to connect with people. And so they would ask questions about health, etc. And I would recommend, for example, How Not to Die. That has it's a very famous book that has a Japanese edition. And so I got a few nice interactions there. And if people become more and more, because Japanese people and the media and everything, they're a lot about health and...
But you can be healthy if you don't have to be vegan to be healthy.
No, you don't.
So I don't think we're going to get anywhere, to be honest.
Well, actually, my idea is like, if you make people more and more aware of the fact that animal products are less healthy than properly
but again, we're pussyfooting around the issue. But I'm not talking about like going to like get a big megaphone and shouting in Shibuya about animal rights. Like, like on our leaflet for Vegan Tokyo, we made like why vegan. We put like 5 reasons for the animals, for the planet, for individual health and society health, like things like coronavirus and chicken flus and pig flus. They're all like, we have lots of pig flu viruses in Japan, and also like world hunger. There's lots of different reasons. So I think it depends. Like, as you said before, when you went to that festival, you met people that were interested in health. So you talked to them first about health, and also give them a leaflet telling them the other reasons. And then, you know, at Earth Day, I met a lot of people that were interested in the environmental reasons. And, you know, at other festivals, you might meet people that want to know more about animals. Some people wanted to know about animals as well. And a lot of people were very interested in things like the super viruses and the unhealthiness of factory farming. I think people will more in the future. But I think basically in Japan, you're right. A lot of people do come from health first of all, but we still need to get the information out about why people around the world are vegan. And basically, vegan means you don't want to eat animals because it's not nice for the animals, basically, doesn't it? That's the main message. So I don't think we need to lie about that. Or I kind of feel a bit like we're pretending it's something it's not in Japan, and we're not getting anywhere, really. So I think that's the reason why, personally. Do you know what I mean? Of course, there are ways to share the message, but we shouldn't be frightened to be honest about what vegan is, I think, as well.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, to me, all of that makes sense. And I wasn't saying we should prioritize only one message.
Yeah.
But my thinking was more like, since the flow of the media and everything like goes towards health, using that as a tool to attach the other pillars.
You know, I really don't know, because, like, you know, when vegan catches on, we'll have lots of like unhealthy vegan products as well, you know.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
And also some papers are starting to share the reasons about vegan. Like, you know, the Nikkei has had quite a few articles, and Mainichi, a lot of other papers covered Vegigiren. So, and, you know, the Nikkei shared quite extensively about animal conditions and philosophy and the environment. I think people in Japan will be interested in that too. I think we should offer people the information. We shouldn't just like... Of course, we can go from health too, but I think a lot of people are already doing the health value, the health angle. So I think we have a lot of people doing the health angle. We could do with a few more people doing, you know, environment, and also, of course, animals, because I think the only people I've really met who are vegan, who have stayed vegan, are vegan for the animals, really. What do you think? I mean, great. I mean, meat reducing is great for health or whatever, but it's not really enough of a reason, is it?
So that's a very good question. At the end of the day, I also feel very strongly it's for the animals that I will stay vegan. I like to think of myself as someone who, even if it wasn't the healthiest choice in the way I eat my food, I would still prefer to sacrifice a bit of genkiness, a bit of healthiness to protect the animals. I mean, there's a line at some point, like if it's between eating meat once a week and living 30 years longer, that becomes a weird kind of thought experiment. But
luckily, like eating, we all know now that like eating plants is much healthier anyway. So we're just like lucky, aren't we?
Yes. But I like philosophical thought experiments.
Me too.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, and I think you're right. But it is, I think, ultimately is the one reason that will drive people to stay vegan the longest. But it's also the one that's the hardest sometimes to jump directly into.
With no information there.
Yes,
I mean, with in Japan, no information available in the mainstream press. Of course, it's going to be something that's difficult to jump into. But there are lots of groups doing good work. They don't have enough money. So if anybody wants to help animal rights groups in Japan, that would be good. Because, like, I remember we did like a talk event a few months ago with, was it Zoo Report? Did you go to the Zoo Report one?
I don't remember going to that one.
With Meguro-san. He's going around Japan doing a report about zoos. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that, but especially specifically. But he put some figures on the board, and it was showing like the budget of like Humane Society in America or something, or PETA America or something, and then like the Animal Rights Center was like about like 100th of the budget. The budget for all of the groups standing up for animals in Japan was something like a 2% of the budget of one American group or something. So it's not surprising, you know, the mainstream press is not reporting about animal issues, and the animal rights groups in Japan are doing a great job, but they don't have any money or resources. So it's not surprising we're kind of stuck here, really, is it? You know. But I'm not sure what my point was there.
Well,
but I think if people
knew,
if people had more information, they might make different choices, or they would make different choices. It's not everybody, but a certain number of people would make different choices than they're making now. It's just no-brainer.
Yeah, there's a potential crowd of vegans in Japan out of the 100 and 23 million Japanese people. There's a portion of that population that if they had access to information, they would probably make life daily changes in the way they eat, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody goes vegan straight away. Some people go vegan immediately. Some people, it takes them years.
Yeah.
But there are lots of people in Japan who would be vegan if they knew about it. You know, they knew it was a thing.
Yeah,
you know?
and they don't have... that information is not readily available to them.
And we also have to remember too that vegan as a solution is quite a new thing for Western countries too. Like when I was growing up, animal rights activists weren't necessarily vegan. It wasn't really a thing yet. We didn't really realize you could actually do that. You know what I mean? So it's a very new thing in the world. Like now, luckily, we have this new solution. We don't like animal exploitation. Okay, we just go vegan. It's very easy. 20, 30 years ago, it was more like, where do I draw the line, you know? Yeah. But now we have a quite easy line to draw.
There's a few...
Just do your best not to use animal products. That's what being vegan means, doesn't it?
Yeah, and plus, I mean, you don't...
It's easy.
Yeah, if you're well-informed, there's almost no risks for, your own health, right? If you do things...
No.
There's less risk in, actually... exchanging dairy for plant-based milk products and meat for, even if you do mock meats at the beginning and then maybe you switch to something else, like you go towards legumes and beans, etc., to have your proteins and other things, you will most probably be healthier and have a better energy level throughout your days. I mean, if not right away, it's going to come, and long term it's going to be better for you and for the planet and etc. But 30, 40 years ago, you wouldn't have, I imagine, associations like big association in the United States and the UK, nutritionist association, saying that it's healthy. The vegan diet is a healthy diet for all stages of life, and
no, of course not. People didn't know that information yet. Then it's still like a work in progress. So I think basically our job as vegan advocates is we're not trying to force anyone to do anything. We're just trying to give people the information so that they can choose things for themselves freely. Because now people are not choosing; they're just eating or using what they're used to doing, what's been foisted on them by society. So I think all we need to do is just basically tell people that vegans exist, it's an option, how many people in the world are doing it, and why they do it. And then people can just make up their mind for themselves. But I just feel in Japan we don't have that information out. We have our Vegan Tokyo leaflet, what's vegan and why vegan, with just the basics on it. But I wish we had more information like that around. So one thing we're planning to do with actually Tokyo Vegan Meetup, we're thinking about changing the website name actually from Vegan Tokyo to Tokyo Vegan, so don't quote me on that. But now we have our leaflet in a couple of restaurants, of vegan restaurants, and I went to one the other day and they told me that it's been very well received. People really enjoy that. Well, they really appreciate that leaflet. So I'm going to try and get someone to redesign the leaflet a bit, make it a little bit more colourful, and then just basically try to put it in as many, at least, vegan cafes as possible. Because many people going to vegan cafes are not yet vegan. They don't know why. And also at Earth Day, we're going to do a booth again at Earth Day, because loads of students and teachers from all over Japan came last year looking for resources. And there was like really no other. There was Animal Rights Centre were there.
They
and
had
stuff,
like this VR thing with animal cruelty, right?
animal cruelty. But there was no vegan outreach
No.
booth apart from
No.
us, and there was almost no vegan food. It was
There
nearly
was
all.
that one vegan burger thing.
There was one like little vegan burger project at the edge, and there was a couple of muffins. There was one person selling muffins, but they had like about 50 stalls selling beef at Earth Day. It was crazy. I mean, beef is like, we all know that's the worst thing for the environment anyway, but you know, beef and chicken and pork, and it was, and Bambi, they had like, you know, wild deer meat. You know, it's all pretty horrible. The smell was pretty horrible.
For the planet is actually potentially less harmful.
Yeah, but Earth Day. I mean, Earth Day. Is it Earth
Sure.
Day? Is it human Earth Day, or was it? I thought Earth Day means for the planet. You know, so for me that was kind of weird, because I guess vegan Earth Day is and Earth Day are two different things. I don't know, but
Yes.
but we're going to do more of like outreach booths, and we're just basically doing what we can do. You know, we haven't got any money. We're all volunteers. We have like no resources, and we haven't got time to like organize fundraising for resources. So we're just basically doing what we can. We're going to carry on with our talk events. Are super popular. We had like about 10 or 12 last year, I think. Did you come to any of them?
I didn't come to all of them. For me, those events are very interesting, but at the same time, since I really enjoy talking with people, they're usually a bit less interesting to me than
there's
the
less
ones I
talking
host.
time. Yeah.
So it really depends on the host for me. For example,
Right,
last Saturday, I was very interested, but then I decided on other plans. Like I think
That's
the host
fine,
was
a jiu-jitsu.
so athlete, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the first time you have an athlete.
We had Yuki Ikeda before that.
Okay.
He was
true,
great.
I remember.
Yeah,
I
he
wasn't
was
in Japan at
fabulous.
that time. Yeah.
Oh, he was also fabulous. Like coming up, we've got the leader of Peace. Peace is an animal rights group. She's a very, very informed person, and she does lots of like government lobbying. So she can tell us about some animal welfare laws and
That would
stuff
be
like
great,
that, and
yes.
animal
Yeah.
testing. And we're also having a nutritionist, our first nutritionist meetup, talking about like basic nutrition and how you can, you know, be healthy and thrive on a vegan diet. So, and I keep on just grabbing anybody I see anybody looks interesting. I just say, oh, do you want to do a talk event? So
Of course,
we
yeah.
sometimes have overseas talk guests too. So I love that. I think it's really fun because
Yeah,
people
it's
want
great.
information. You know, a lot of us are quite kind of hardcore vegans, but we have lots of beginner vegans or people
And
that
even
aren't
like,
vegan yet.
Yeah, I remember that event. I think it was one focused mostly on animal rights, but at least one of the person I chatted with was a regular omnivore, let's say, and so I think he even asked questions about lab-grown meat at the time and etc. So it led to an interesting discussion. But yeah, I mean, those talk events I think are very interesting because opening a web page, it usually very nice information on it. It's good, but meeting people that's how human beings connect.
Yeah,
Right.
and people love talking to each other after, and they like talking before and eating. They're all very like cheap and social, and then they can eat some nice food and make some friends and listen, and then people tend to talk about the subjects after.
Yeah.
And then they discuss them and find out.
And usually the hosts, I
Yeah.
mean, so far all my experiences, like the hosts are they're welcoming everyone and
Yeah, we welcome
engaging in every
everybody.
conversation. It's not like they're in the
Yeah.
corner, you can't talk to them. So it's great for like actually asking questions and listening to someone that is in their own way really involved in spreading the vegan world.
In whatever way they happen to be, or just living in their,
Yeah.
in their thing, whatever they're doing. I really like that. I really enjoy that. I think I get a lot out of that. I mean, I met a couple of people at Meetup last week, and they've both just gone vegan. They both said to me, "Oh,
That's
I've gone
nice.
vegan,"
Yeah.
and they were sort of like trying to find out what it was, figure out if they could actually do it. You know
But
what I
they're
mean?
Japanese people?
Yeah, both Japanese.
Nice. Yeah.
And they've kind of like taken the kind of step from being sort of vegans to being vegan, which is nice because then they'll be more open, I think, with people around
Plus, if they're
them.
doing that together,
Well, they're not together, but they're
Okay, well, I mean,
they're
as
two
friends
separate
even?
people,
Yeah.
not even friends.
Okay,
no.
okay, well, then it's even more interesting.
One person was one he's sort of like not ordinary, no, he's ordinary, but he's a businessman.
Okay.
And he was saying his major trouble before we were talking the other week. He was saying about how it was difficult to find food to eat after work.
Yeah.
And the other lady I spoke with, she went vegan after hearing one of our talk events, the one about fashion. I actually wasn't in the country. We had a fashion designer in December gave a talk event about a vegan fashion designer. So I think everybody comes for different reasons. So anyway, let's just carry on. We can't do everything. We just have to do what we can.
Yeah,
but
and I think
it's kind of enjoyable kind of form of activism, I think.
Yeah, what you're doing, I think.
Love it.
I said that even today to Saudi, the co-organizer whom I visited today. I hadn't seen her in a long time. And so I expressed again this opinion of mine that is, I think the work Tokyo Vegan Meetup is doing is one of the most important kind of activism that can happen in Tokyo at the moment, because it's bringing people together for nice food, as I said earlier, and it's providing opportunities for discussions to happen during that time. And if you were to remove the food or make it it's not like it's always the main focus, right? Sometimes it's the talk that's the main focus, but it's not like you're labeling your event something like meetup for people who are interested in veganism with vegans, they will answer your questions kind of thing, right? You would have some show-ups, but you would have less show-ups. And so having people just feel like, oh, I love that food. There's not so much opportunities in Tokyo to get that kind of food. In, like, for example, I'm talking about the Pink Cow buffet, and you have a lot of food, and it's very satisfactory food, very good food, and people go for the food and for the crowd and for like meeting new people. And so since a lot of them are not vegan, it allows like a lot of conversations to take place, and I think that kind of activism is one of the most important one that can be done right now in Tokyo.
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, I think it's worthwhile. That's why I'm doing it. You know, I think if everybody was vegan already, I wouldn't spend so much time making vegan events, because people sometimes get the impression that all the people at the events are vegan. But you know, why would I spend all my time doing that?
Yeah, it's really not the case.
No, I'm doing it because it's activism, because it's a chance to tell. You know, of course, I like to support the vegans that like foreign vegans come over and then they like want to make friends. It's lovely to have like a community, support the community, but it's basically activism through.
It's outreach.
It's outreach through like parties and socializing and just having nice friends. And I've met so many like nice friends, you know. I mean, I don't think I've actually ever met anyone I don't like at Vegan Meetup. Have you? I mean,
I don't remember.
I don't remember. I can't think. No one comes to mind. I can't think, oh, I didn't like that person, they were horrible or anything. I think everyone seems quite. Maybe we all have in common like diversity, a little bit open-minded.
Yeah, plus curiosity, like just because of how Japan is at the time in regards to veganism and plant-based foods, people who make the step to go to those events, they have that curiosity to them. And you meet everyone, like the ones who surprise me the most usually on the kind of outside side of it. Like when I see them, I'm a bit like, oh, that's not so common to have that kind of people come, is the kind of regular 50-ish years old salaryman who you can imagine.
That's our like bias, isn't it? So
it's biased.
We have negative bias that we think that they're not vegan.
I mean, that's not. I don't think they're not vegan. I mean, for them to be coming requires probably more.
They're probably the ones reading the Nikkei, though.
Yeah, okay.
To be honest.
Fair enough.
No,
So
I know what you mean, but
because
the
they have
people
all
that are
this
stepping
society,
outside.
like the traditional Japanese society background, the momentum of the culture, the going out with friends, like colleagues to izakayas and everything, right? And it's like it's going one step towards veganism. It's like
they're very brave, aren't they?
It's like it's very impressive to me.
And they have their life in place already, and they have to sort of disrupt their easy life to do something else.
So I really enjoy asking them where they're coming from, etc.
It's so interesting. It's wonderful. Really interesting people. I mean, everyone's got their story, haven't they? You know.
Yes,
I mean,
yes, and that's what I try to capture here and there on the podcast. And so, is there anything else you want to share with the listeners before we close this second episode together?
No, if anybody wants to help with our Tokyo Vegan Meetup outreach projects, Now the website is called vegantokyo.org. All the resources are on there. We might be changing the website to tokyovegan.org in the near future. We're also rebranding everything, like our image. We've got a great logo and everything, but we're all volunteers, so it's a matter of when people have time to do stuff.
Of course. Well, I mean, I will provide all the useful links in the show notes, and I mean, just looking up
follow us on Instagram.
Of course. Just looking Tokyo Vegan Meetup on Google will also bring up like the meetup group and everything. So I think people will know where to find you, and hopefully 2020 is going to be a very positive year for Tokyo Vegan Meetup, and very enjoyable for you as well.
Well, yeah, like one thing that kind of worries me a little bit is that we're so active with all the events, but I don't think our social media reflects what we actually
there's
who
more
we
happening,
are.
way more happening than what you can see on
Yes,
social
I think
media.
we really need to figure out how to
so much
share
time,
more.
right?
That's the whole thing.
Yes.
Anybody wants to volunteer to help?
Anyone
Anyone likes doing
takes so
Instagramming
much
or-
time, so much time. I used to do it
so-
more often for the podcast, but right now I'm like...
Now it's just basic minimal, really.
Well, I mean, also, I have my own reasons for having tuned down a bit, but definitely if Tokyo Vegan Meetup could have someone who's really like knowledgeable about that and active, I think it would really boost
just
the
let
movement
people
overall.
know.
And it would be good for the animals.
Exactly. We're
That's
doing
the
it for
point,
the
right?
animals, aren't
Yeah.
we? So, yeah.
So,
well, thank you.
Thank you so much
fun.
for being here a second time. And I look forward to the next event where we're both together at the same place. Doesn't happen often because
'Cause now
I
you're
don't
hosting
take part
Pink
that
Cow.
much in non-pink cow events. But yeah, sometime soon.
But you've been very helpful hosting the Pink Cow
Well,
for the
thank
last
you.
few months.
Thank
so
you.
It's really good. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
until next time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Brilliant. Thanks for your hard work.
Thank you for listening to the Ciplango podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please think about sharing it with friends and on social media. Ciplango is also on Instagram and Facebook at ciplantgo. There you can have a look at the latest things going on in my plant-based life in Japan. There is also an email address, ciplantgo@gmail.com. Feel free to send me a message, whether it's to ask a question, give me suggestions for Ciplango, or anything else. Have a great rest of the day, and until next time.